Good morning, everyone. At least it's morning here for me still, Talila, in Houston, Texas. So good morning, and for you it's afternoon. So good afternoon, and then good evening to all of those. I open up all my lives the same way because I think it's so super cool that, and yes, I am 51 and I use the word cool, but I think it's so super cool that we can tune in from anywhere around the world. So be sure to let us know where you are joining us from this morning, this afternoon, or this evening. If Oh, sorry. It does. If you don't realize, I just brought my lives back here recently, so I do try to do multiple things. So it does not mean when I'm looking away from Talila or from the screen that I'm actually not paying attention. I am. I'm just trying to do a lot of things at one time. So make sure that you tell us where you're tuning in from. Again, I'm in Houston, Texas, but Talila, tell us where you're from.
I'm from the greater Boston area, 40 minutes north of Boston. And Denise, I have to tell you, I didn't know that the word cool is not cool anymore.
Well, I don't know if it is. My daughter says it, but my daughter's 14. And so I try really hard not to be as cool as she is by using some of her lingo. So for me, it just seems a bit odd to use the word cool, but
I like it. I like it.
Awesome. So you're in Boston. My dad was a Bostonian. He's dead, but he was a Bostonian. So I love the Boston area. So thank you for joining us from there. Again, let us know where you're from in the comments below. But I want to welcome everyone to the Blue TV, which we do now regularly on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Houston, Texas, or Central Time. So tune back once a week to join us here. But today, and we always open up just to explain a little bit about what Blue TV is. It is really the opportunity to share with you some amazing people within my community network, and we're going to talk about some of the things that they're doing, let you get to know them, but as well we're going to share some things that we've done here on LinkedIn. We'll kind of end our session with how we're leveraging LinkedIn and what we're doing on LinkedIn as a platform that has really allowed us to continue to grow and accelerate our businesses. So I am not going to spend a lot of time sharing much about Talila. She can actually do her own introduction, but I think it's so super cool, we're going to use that word again, that she is here joining us today. She has a wealth of knowledge to bring. She has a book that is just released. She has a tremendous amount of experience in engineering and now in really helping leaders be their best versions of themselves, would be the best way that I would summarize that. And our topic today is really around powerful traits of transformational leaders and high impact salespeople. But before we dive into the topic, I want everyone to get to know Talila just a little bit. I actually met Talila more recently in a group that we and among others belong to, and so I've had the opportunity to get to know her a little. But I want her to introduce herself to you, and then we'll dive a little bit further into the topic. So Talila, handing it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Denise. First of all, I want to say how happy I am to be here, and I'm really thankful for you for giving me the opportunity to be on Blue TV. So I'm a former CTO and divisional CTO of private companies and Fortune 500 companies like Stanley Black & Decker, Harris, and Motorola. And I now serve as a business management advisor, helping B2B SaaS companies grow profit and scale by optimizing product portfolio, making product engineering more efficient, and providing fractional CTO and CPO services. And I like the way you said it. I'm going to use it as my new tagline: helping leaders be better than they are, the best version of themselves. I like it.
I love.
Yes, thank you. My passion project is my upcoming book, The Triumph Framework, 7 Steps to Leading Organizational Transformation. And I want to say that you mentioned LinkedIn. If not LinkedIn, I wouldn't be writing this book. And the way it helped me is that I always wanted to write a book, but I was in technology. I was an executive. this was not something that I had planned to do. I was thinking maybe when I retire sometimes. But then what happened was that during the pandemic, I was divisional CTO of two divisions, and they were both growing. And if you remember, during the pandemic, getting new people on board was very, very hard. So the director of PR suggested that maybe I would post on LinkedIn as a way to make people more familiar with what we were doing and making the roles more attractive, or making I posted about people in my divisions, about what we're doing and so forth. And after I left, I continued posting. I realized that I really liked it. And so I continued posting, and people were really responsive. I saw that people like what I have to say, and people engaged with me. And that brought back my dream of writing a book, because I have so much learning to share, and I wanted everybody to know. I wanted to help grow the next generation of leaders. And that's really what got me to write the book. So if not LinkedIn, I wouldn't have a book today.
I love that. And we have a lot there to unpack, because I want to know how you got to where you are today. We can talk a little bit more about LinkedIn, because I had a love-hate relationship and now I have a love, but we can talk about all that more later. I do want to first acknowledge that Tim, I'm going to say this out loud on the show. We need to get you scheduled to be on here with us. He's always in the audience. He's a member of our small community. I'm super excited that you're out there. And he put not only where he was from, but also what he was drinking. He's drinking water, because one of the questions I wanted to ask are, what are you drinking right now? I always have a cup of coffee on my lives, and I do all my lives in the morning. So I drink multiple cups of coffee. I'm on coffee number 3.
Oh,
What about you, Talila?
I have tea. I have 2 types of green tea here: an energized tea and a tea garden, green tea garden.
I love that. I love that. And we know that Tim is drinking water, so thank you. And he did say he was looking forward to joining us at some point on Blue TV. So we now have to make that happen, Tim. But in the meantime, I want to get back, for those of you that are joining with us Team Live, be sure to let us know whether you're Team Live or Team Replay. And what did Tim say? He said, you're not wrong for drinking coffee. Well, I don't know. After 3 cups, someone might disagree with you on that, Tim.
No. There is research now that shows that drinking coffee is good to keep you young and smart. It helps your brain, and it's good against aging. And at least 3 cups to get this effect. So
Oh, there we go. Now, I will have to admit, though, Talila and Tim, I actually have been drinking a lot of sugar in the past, and I just started this week with changing out the sugar and putting something else in it. So it's a mixture of butter, and so it's the Bullet coffee. So it's a mixture of butter, collagen, and MCT oil, with hopes that I reduce the sugar intake, but still have a flavor other than just the coffee. So we'll see if that works. So I don't know how smart I was, or how young it has kept me, because I've had a lot of sugar intake, but that's okay.
Tim, I see that Tim is saying, I agree. Tell my wife that I will send you a link to a book that talk about the good effects of coffee and provide scientific evidence. So hopefully it will work. Personally, I don't drink coffee, just that you know, not because I think it's bad for you, but because I don't like, I know I'm weird that way, but I just don't like the taste. It's too bitter for me.
Yeah, well, I love the taste, but I still add stuff in it to make it a little bit more frou-frou. So, and Tim says, make sure you do send him the link for that book.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so we've had a little time to get to know one another a bit, and I do want to, before we go right into the subject, tell us a little bit about where you're originally from, because we can tell that you're not from Boston. So maybe you can tell us a little bit of history about how, where you were raised and how you came to the U.S. and, share a little bit more about yourself, and then we will really dive into the topic.
Okay, sounds great. So I was born in Israel, and I lived there. I started my professional career there. I studied in Tel Aviv University. I started my career with Motorola in Israel, moved to other companies, but most of my career in Israel, I worked in a startup. I tried my own startup. And then there was an opportunity in Motorola in Arlington Heights. And it was just the same project that it was leading a team that managed 3 projects. One of them was the same project that I managed in Motorola Israel. And so I contacted the VP that oversaw this project, and I knew that, and he was like, well, I'm retiring. I'm not there anymore, but I will introduce you to the current head of this development. And they interviewed me. And of course, I was the perfect candidate because I knew these things inside out already. I had experience. I had experience working with Motorola. And so they offered me the position. And that's how I got to the US in 2001. The role was director of engineering in Motorola Cellular Infrastructure Group, and I've been there for 9 years in that role. I started with 3 groups, and then I got a 4th group, all of engineering, all legacy products. Out of those 4 groups, 3 ended up being closed, but one of them I grew from being like, I think like 12 engineers and I want to say less than $1 million in revenue to like 50 million and 120 engineers. And then we were acquired, or we were spun off, or I don't know how to call it. We had a very unique arrangements with a company called Infinite. They created a wholly owned subsidiary, Infinite Convergence Solution, and I was the CTO and the general manager of that new company. And that was an amazing experience. I really didn't want to leave Motorola, just if you understand. It was my 3rd stint with Motorola. I loved it. I knew the people. I felt at home there. But my boss at the time said, Talila, if you don't move, there's no deal. You have to move. So I moved, and it ended up to be like the best thing for my career because I grew to a CTO level. And I'm really proud of what we did there because when we started, we were a telecom company selling only to big telecoms like Verizon, US Cellular, and others. And we branched to sell both to telecom and to enterprise with a brand new innovative product. So this was really transforming the company from legacy to innovative and growing revenue by 25%. And this was like the second big transformation that I did. Before that, I did some transformation in Motorola, but this was the second biggest transformation. Then I moved to Harris, where again, it was a transformation status. It was a turnaround. I was the VP of engineering for the public safety division. Then I moved to video. Another video was similar to Zoom, but we had a focus on healthcare and contact centers. Video was acquired, and then I moved on to Stanley Black & Decker, where I was the divisional. My title was VP of Innovation and Engineering, and I was basically the divisional CTO for 2 divisions, Stanley Healthcare and Stanley Access Technologies. And then now I have my own company, and I advise. Yes, it was always, again, a dream of mine to have to do things on my own. I actually, when I was in Israel, I tried a startup, but
Mhm.
it was, and I had a partner. We almost got secured funding, but then the dot bust started, if you remember that time.
Yep.
And our investors withdrew at the last minute, which was very disappointing. Maybe we should have continued on our own, but my partner decided that she needed income, and I didn't want to just continue on my own. So we had a great idea then, but I don't regret it because I had a great career and I enjoyed every minute of it. And I enjoy what I do now. It's different than working in corporate in the sense that instead of having one focus area, I work with several companies. But I feel that I really help these companies grow and scale and do things better, and it gives me a lot of satisfaction and joy, and I enjoy what I do.
I love that. And if you did not hear, there's a common thread in all of her experience, which is this technology background. So Talila is actually going to join us. I think it's in May on CAF AI chats that I actually hold on Wednesdays as well, but just at 9 a.m. So I'm super excited to have her there and to share a little bit more about her technology background and things that she's doing in that space. But I do want to really dive into, because one of the other things that was consistent in the way that she described each of her roles was this concept of transformation. And so I'd like, our topic today was really about how, we as individuals, and whether we are salespeople or leaders within our business, we are consistently or constantly having to influence others, right? How do we influence them in a way that is not so that they don't actually know that they're being influenced, right? In my mind, right? And and this is really, I think this is Talila's like wheelhouse. Her superpower is that she really has a way to transform leaders and salespeople in a way that really allows them to truly be the best versions of themselves. And she has a book that she is fixing to launch called The Triumph Framework: 7 Steps to Leading Organizational Transformation, which I had to look at my cheat sheet here to get all that out. But maybe from here you can, what really prompted you to start really focusing on this as your own business? What was it that really made you decide this is the path that I want to go down?
So if we're talking about the business, was kind of, this is two separate things. So the business was kind of coincidental. I left Stanley and I was thinking of getting my next CTO position, full-time CTO position in corporate. And people from my network just approached me and says, well, in the meantime, can you help us with this? Can you help us with that? And so my first few engagements just came from my network. They came naturally. I enjoy doing this. I felt I was making a big impact. I had a fractional CTO. The first role was a fractional CTO position with a small startup where they needed somebody to manage their technology and their engineering team. And the other role was basically a digital transformation of an accounting firm. And I enjoyed both of them, and I decided that I want to continue and develop this type of business. In terms of the book, I really thought about writing, since, as you say, technology is what I do. I was going to write the CTO playbook, helping the next generation of leaders grow into the C-suite. That was my original intent. But then when I thought about what was the hardest part of my job, it was never the technology. Technology always seemed easy, and there were always a lot of people that wanted to contribute. So that did not constitute the hardest thing. The hardest thing was to drive change. Because think about how business is today. It's constant upheaval. There's always something new. There's always a disruption. There is digital transformation. AI is one of the biggest transformation of our time. Supply chain problems, work models. There's no rest for leaders. Something always happens. And what I knew from my experience is that many leaders just struggle with it. They don't know how to drive change because people in general don't want to change. We are creatures of habit, and we like to do what we've always done, especially when we're under stress or when there are problems and there's a crisis. We go into defense mode and we do things the way we've always done that. So leaders really need to they need to find a solution, and then they need to act like a salesperson and sell it to their team. We are past the time of autocratic leaders that just say, do it, and people do. Even if they want to, again, they revert to what happened before naturally. So there is a constant need to motivate, to engage, and to influence employees to do what they need to do. And Tim is saying VUCA scares us, and you're right. People, when they run into uncertainty, volatility, complexity, they just don't know what to do. They struggle. Leaders struggle as well. So that's why I came up with this 7-step system that says, if you follow this, you will be able to get to the root cause of your challenges, come up with a solution, and partner both with your managers, your board, your investors, and your employees to get this plan into action, to make it happen, and to make it happen successfully. It's really a blueprint for success on how to make an impact.
Well, and when I think of, I talk about an innovative sales culture often, although less now than I did when I first started my business. But when we talk about an innovative culture, it is one where we foster this creativity amongst our team members. It's where we foster autonomous responsibility, right? Where they're actually working on things on their own without having to feel so micromanaged. And it's allowing everyone the opportunity to engage in the process if they so choose, and if they don't choose not to, right? But I do feel like that's one of the things that we are missing, because inevitably the one thing we can always count on is change, and it's here. It's happening every day. We have new technologies being introduced. In fact, on my Cafe AI chats this morning, we had Jordan Wilson there, and what he talked about was this topic around generative AI, that if you're not using it today, you are not going to be effective and be even potentially around in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think 10 is stretching it. I don't think he can use the time frame of 10 years. But nonetheless, if we aren't adopting to change because of these new products and the evolution of our technologies today, then we are going to be obsolete. And maybe not as individuals, but our business and our role, someone else will fill our role, because they'll find someone that can do that. Maybe share with us what you can, because I don't want you to give out too much, but share a little bit about the 7 steps with us, if you can, or what you feel comfortable sharing, given that the book's not out yet.
Sure. So the 7 steps, the reason why I call my book The Triumph Framework, Triumph is really an acronym for the 7 steps that I have.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. So T is for think and get to the root cause of your challenge, because that's one of the most important things. If you don't handle the root, things will pop up again and again, right? Like whack-a-mole. You have to figure out what's driving the problem. And one of the things that I'm contemplating doing is create a workbook for Triumph with Gen AI. So for leaders that are grappling with how to adopt Gen AI, you have to think about how this applies to your organization and what are the specific challenges that you have that Gen AI can help you solve, and or the specific challenge, the specific cases where Gen AI actually threatens you, right? Because Gen AI can be a threat. It can be a source of productivity enhancements or a source of new revenue. And you need to figure out where you fall into these categories. Again, all in terms of just defining the problem and figuring out the root cause. And this is where I think this is kind of similar to salespeople. I was thinking, when you try to sell somebody something to somebody, you want to understand what problem they're dealing with that your product will help you solve, right? Isn't that the same thing? I'm not the sales expert. You are the sales expert, Denise. So you tell me.
Well, Talila, that's one of the things I always talk about. The importance, when we talk about sales, yes, adopt and adapt to AI technologies, because I do believe that there are areas within the sales process you should leverage those for efficiencies. But those efficiency gains should allow you then to pivot and focus on the most important aspect of the sales process, which is the human connection. And the only way you can build that human connection is if you're curious and you get to probable root cause. And when I mean getting to probable root cause, it's not the first or second line response. When you ask a first or second line question, you're only going to get a subsurface response. You have to be curious enough to get really in the trenches and continue to ask the questions until you have no more questions left to ask. I mean, we're talking fourth and fifth and sixth, because only then are you going to start to offer an opportunity to have the conversations that truly let you get to what the probable root cause is of the problem. Because the first and second line, most people are not going to answer that. Or even if you aren't asking those questions and you're researching those questions, when you find the first or second response, it's still not going to be the true problem. You've got to dig deeper. So yes, I totally agree with you on this. And I think only then can we be good salespeople. Otherwise, you're selling to the complete wrong problem that you're trying to sell to, and you will not close business.
Right.
So yes, I agree with that.
Okay, so this is the T is the first step. R is recognize the stakeholders and form partnerships. And I think that's one of the most important thing is partnering, because you cannot do things. You're not an island. You cannot do things on your own. You have to find out who are the other stakeholders. If they don't work with you and they work against you, then the chances of your success are very, very slim. It's like you don't want to swim against the current. You want to have everybody help push you downstream, right? So there is the whole thing about, recognizing the stakeholders and work and partnering with them. I is for ideate a plan. This is where you need to have a vision and where and come up. And I call it ideate a plan versus form a plan, because I believe that the most important thing is come up with a strategy and the high level idea. I believe in agile methodologies where you don't define everything to the smallest detail at the beginning, but you start with a high level plan and then you work on it and improve it as you go. So that's ideate a plan. U is unwavering communication. M is mobilize grassroots support, because as the leader today, you cannot just you cannot just tell employees do that and they do. Even if they want to work with you, they don't always know everything. So you need to have people from this employee camp in your core that can help in the day-to-day, that can influence and drive things. So we talked TRIU. P is put the plan into action finally. So that's the execution stage. And H is hone your plan, because as we talked about, iterative planning, iterative execution. And I see that Tim really likes it. Iterative and incremental problem solving. Hooray, yes. Yes. So this is the Triumph method. And I have a chapter for each one of those steps. And I explain how to do it, what to do, and so forth, why it's important. And the book is based on my own experience, of course. This is a framework that I developed throughout my career, but it's also based on research and on experience of iconic leaders. I interviewed many leaders for this book, and I tell their stories, and some of the stories are just fascinating. So, for instance, I interviewed Dr. Robert Pearl, who was the former CEO of Kaiser Permanente, one of the biggest healthcare systems in the US. And he brought them from the brink of bankruptcy to be what they are today, which they're very successful at the top and so forth, at the top in quality, and all kinds of measures of healthcare systems. And he told a story about how he did that, how he came up with the strategy. He had a very, very elaborate communications framework. So he talks about this as well. And all these stories really highlight how you need to serve as examples. And I believe that leaders that want to drive change and will read the book, this is like a blueprint for success. They would know what they need to do. This is a roadmap. The other part, of course, is you need to have some characteristics, you need to have some traits in order to be able to do all these things, right? So, for instance, we talked about unwavering communication. You need to be able to communicate well, both on the one level, but also public speaking. If you have a big organization and you want to communicate with all of them, you need sometimes to give motivational speeches and so forth. You need to talk with customers. And sometimes they bring you in bigger forums. So public speaking, for instance, is something that's very important. And by the way, this is one of the skills that are the most anxiety inducing with people. I have a friend that she's in sales. She's an account executive.
Yep.
And she's been there for several years. She's very successful. And she told me that she still takes an anxiety pill before every big
presentation.
Yeah, presentation, because it's anxiety inducing, right? So you have to develop these skills, and you need to learn how to do it. And I talk about the fact that this is not something that you're born with. This is something that you can develop. And actually, FDR, the president, known for his public speaking. He had a speech. It's called Day of Infamy. He gave it in 1941, a day after the Japanese invaded Pearl Harbor, and it led the nation to unite behind his call to war. So he's really known as a masterful speaker. But when he started, there is a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt where she listened to her husband in 1910 speak, and she was so taken aback by his long pauses and slow delivery that she said something like, and I don't have the exact quote, I quote in the book, she said something like, "I was worried that he would never go on." So imagine. He started so badly, and he made his way to a top speaker. So everybody can. You just need to develop it. And there are other traits that also you need to develop them to be able to influence people, motivate them, and develop the right solutions.
And I think, I love how you're fostering or really focusing more on organizations and leaders. But even as salespeople, I think we could leverage this blueprint because it maps to all the things that I talk about. So when you start to branch out, I think your first iteration as it relates to the workbook may be centered around generative AI, right? I think that's what you said. But I
Yes.
think you could even expand at some point, maybe not now, but at some point expand that to even include all of those. And because I think that this is a blueprint that we should all be managing to. I like, and I don't think that they're two separate. We talked about the technology and then the leadership, but I really think in order to foster and build a place of innovation where you have all of these new technologies and you're adopting them effectively, you have to have and build and create this innovative culture. And this framework enables your leaders to do just that. Build and foster and create this innovative culture that will then enable the technology. I love this.
Right.
Love this.
Thank you.
So okay, but I do want to, because we're getting close to having to wrap up. I do want to talk about how, because you mentioned, and there's a lot more we could talk about here. So I do think at some point we probably need to reschedule another session. Maybe you need to come on my coffees with Denise, where we can chat a little bit more just about you. But I do want to talk about how you mentioned at the beginning that the reason why you went down this path and launching this book was because of LinkedIn. So maybe share with us a little bit about your LinkedIn experience and why you've been, or what has enabled you to be so successful here on LinkedIn. Because there are so many of us out there today who are really working hard or want to get to this level in which they see a lot of us have already achieved. How can they model themselves after, or model some of the activities that you've done in order to get you to this place? So that was a lot.
Yes. I think it's a great question. When I started, I just, as I said, I started because I wanted to promote my previous workplace. What I found out was that I really enjoy expressing myself. I really enjoy writing, and I write about things that I try to limit my LinkedIn to things that are really professional and that would interest other professionals, right? People that want to get to leadership position. I write mostly about leadership and about technology. But even when I write about technology, it's not meant strictly for technologies. It's meant for people that are interested in technological trends. This week I started a new Tuesday Tech Talk, but it's AI for business leaders. So it's really for anybody that's interested in technology, not limited to technical people. And for me, it's really about expressing myself and what I believe in, and talking about things that I read in the news, new trends, development, leadership. I post a lot about questions that I get from my own clients. So if I see, so for instance, one post that was successful, I talked with a client, and she talked about the fact that she was in an interview and she didn't get the job. And she was like, "What's wrong with me?" And the answer is, you don't know we don't know why you didn't get the job. So it may not be you, it may be them, and you will never know for sure. And I gave her examples from my own experience where I was in a big corporation, and we interviewed several people for a position just to learn at the end that our boss already predetermined who was getting the job. But he went through the motions of the interviews, so it will look good for HR, which was super frustrating for all of us. I cannot tell you how much time we we spent on this. But these are the kind of things that happen. And as an interviewee, you have no way of knowing. So it's possible that the job was already pre-assigned to someone and they just went through the motion. It's possible that they closed the position without giving it to anyone. That happened several times. I did it myself at times where we thought we were replacing someone, and then we had the notion that we are cutting down. So the first thing that I did was cut down the new positions. There are so many reasons why that may have nothing to do with you. Now, having said all that, that doesn't mean that you don't need to look at how you think you performed in the interview and try to improve it going forward. But you should be kind to yourself and not make assumption where you really don't know. So this is an example of a coaching client that I worked with. She raised a question, I put it on LinkedIn. So this is what I post about. I have now a tech talks on Tuesday. On Thursday, it's usually about leadership. And Saturday, I have a kind of book reviews, mostly leadership books that I'm reading, and I share my feedback with my LinkedIn family. What I found that was successful is posting consistently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Same day, same time. The one time that I tried to post on totally different times, there wasn't the same level of engagement. I guess people just look for my post at specific times. I usually post in the morning between 8 to 9:30. I think these are the hours where people are most on LinkedIn and most looking at their feed. And I think it's also important that you have a certain brand and you stick to it, because when I try to post, a few times I posted on things that were different than my regular posts, and again, I didn't see a lot of success in that either. So I would say consistency, stay on brand, and post on things that have broad interest.
And actually add value. I would say that I love your strategy, and most people will tell you that that's the strategy to take. I will tell you that my strategy has been completely different. I don't know that I even had a strategy until and my consistency was my own consistency, but it wasn't always the perfect consistency, right? I had this for probably a year, maybe even 2 years. I had this love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. I would be all in and I'd be gung-ho and I would do it, but I never loved it. I just did it because I knew I needed to. And then I would get burned out. And then I would go away for a bit of time and then I'd come back. But I will say the one thing that always remained consistent, even though it evolved, because as you post more, as you're engaging and commenting more, even as you are growing professionally and personally, your content will evolve, right? I do believe that you have to stay consistent with your topics, right? With what you believe in. It doesn't again mean you can't evolve. It just means as you evolve, you tailor it, but you evolve over time and not necessarily make a 360-degree turnaround, right? You stick to your content, and some people will tell you to build content buckets, which you can do, right? You can just pick certain days and each day just have a specific content. There's an 80-20 rule, which is 80% of your content needs to be business and 20% personal. So you can go off brand a little sometimes, but I think the difference is when you look at what's made Talila successful and then what has made me successful is something completely different, right? And you just have to find your groove. And that's what I think my biggest takeaway is. Learn from Talila. I think you should have a strategy. You should do all the things that Talila mentions because that made her successful. and then test things out. If they don't work, then pick another, then try to adopt a different strategy, or maybe plug and play, take some things out and put some things in. Like I know there are lots of people who post at 6 a.m. in the morning and they get tons of traction and tons of engagement.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
do that. Yeah, I don't do that.
I don't
But
wake up at 6 a.m. That's not for me.
no, not for me either. So I just think that we all need to find our strategy. But and you can adjust that strategy by testing and playing and just actually executing first, and then seeing how it falls, and then manage accordingly, right? So I love that you shared your strategy, Talila, because most people will tell you, have post every day, same time, be consistent, post in the morning, and make sure that you have a designated day for each bucket of content, like you do your tech talks, your leadership, and then your book reviews. So I love that you shared that with us. So I thank you for having spent the time with us today. We're going to start to wrap up now. For everyone who's still out there, I want to allow Talila, though, to kind of take us away with her final thoughts. And then how do we find you? How do we engage with you regularly? If you look at the bottom of the screen along the ticker, I did put her LinkedIn handle, so you can find her at, we know the whole linkedin.com/in/ and then Talila Millman. You can find her there, but maybe share with us your final takeaway thoughts and where to find you other than at your profile page.
So I want to thank you. It was so much fun talking with you, Denise.
Thank you.
And if people want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn, as you said, LinkedIn Talila Millman. That's my handle. And also I have a website, www.talilamillman.com. My book comes out in May, launches in May. If you want to get notification when it's out, you can sign up for my mailing list. I usually send a monthly newsletter, and I also send notifications of new stuff you can get. There will be a free booklet on the leadership trait. The book you will be notified when the book comes out, and when there's any other programs or launch parties or media appearances.
Awesome. And maybe your takeaway from today's session, what would you want to leave everyone with when they finish out today's session with us?
We live in an era of constant change, and we need to be able to deal with it, prepare, be ready, and adapt. We are in the era of survival of the adaptable, I would say. And so we have to constantly learn, constantly watch the trends, and be diligent.
I love that. And while I think that the Triumph framework is really great for leaders, it's also effective for just about anyone out there, whether you're a leader or not. So when your book comes out, I think we all need to go out and run for the bookstores or Amazon or whatever and download the book, because I do think it'll be a good read for us all. So my takeaway is that I'm going to make sure that I read your book and apply the seven traits or the 7 steps within the framework, the Triumph framework, even into my personal life as a salesperson and as a business owner. So thank you for that. I again want to thank everyone for joining us. Talila is going to be here in May again on CAF AI Chats. So I'm super excited about that, where she can talk more about technology and AI. In the meantime, we are here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Blue TV. We've got a full set of lineup of guests for the whole month of April and some already into May. So look forward to various different topics. And I have also a live on Friday, Coffee with Denise, so feel free to catch me there also. I thank everyone for joining us. Super excited that you were here. I'm wishing everyone a wonderful rest of your day. Happy Hump Day, and let's finish out an amazing week. Thank you again to everyone out there, and a special you, Talila. So thank you. All right, so now I'm going to end the stream. So Talila, hang with me, and everyone else, you're going to see a brief awkward moment until the stream actually